Hey Tracy, good morning. Lovely to be here with you again today.
Morning. I don't know how it is where you are, but it's a beautiful autumnal day here. Started a little bit cool, but I quite like that because I went out for a run. I hate being too hot. And it is beautiful sunshine now. It's absolutely gorgeous. It makes you feel good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a lovely day here. Yesterday we went swimming in the sea, which was quite nice, but it's definitely autumnal.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in two minds on that one. I love autumn, but it means we're heading to winter.
I know, exactly. I think spring for me is definitely the season because we're starting to see things grow again and starting to see energy and life and all of those things, which is rather nice.
It is good. Actually, that's really interesting because in my subscription portal this week, I've started getting the guys looking at energy and I've got them out hugging trees and putting their hands around plants and food and God knows what. So it's interesting how the different life stages also affect that energy. So it's going to be interesting to see what they all come back with.
Oh, fantastic. So we're going to talk about the priestess wound today.
I know, I'm so excited.
Yes, it is a big wounding. We talked about the witch wound last week, and the priestess wound I found has real relevance in the spiritual community. Now, I know that you kind of word things different rather than giving them these names to help people understand exactly what's going on. So we're going to dive into the priestess wound today and really talk about what it is, where it's come from, how it's showing up in our lives now, and what we
Mm.
can do to start healing it.
I think that's the biggie because when people come to me for a reading, of course, they're all excited and it's fascinating to know that you were Cleopatra in a previous life or that you had 10 lives as a man and this and this and this happened. But the one thing that comes up time and time again is a bit like going to the doctors. It's like, okay, so you're giving me the diagnosis. How the hell do I heal it? How do I get rid of it? And that's where the real growth is. So I think people are going to really enjoy hearing what the priestess wound is. But to me, that's almost like the curiosity titillation bit, and then it's like, okay, so now what do I do? And that I think
Yeah.
is going to be the real meaty bit, so bring it on.
Yeah, definitely. I think acknowledgement also is a big part of this, like understanding that behavior, that pattern, or that block is the thing that is holding you back. Sometimes just acknowledgement and understanding can start to shift
Yeah,
what's going on.
it's kind of like, oh, that's what it is, gone.
Yeah,
It's like just that awareness shifts that energy.
yeah,
Sometimes there is deeper healing that's needed, but sometimes just that aha moment is so powerful.
it really is. And when we're talking about things like the witch wound, the priestess wound, we have had lifetimes, right? So just one quick healing may not kind of cover it because there's lifetimes. And plus, we've also got the energy and the trauma that's passed down through our lineage as
Mm.
well. And I think this is something that perhaps we could talk a little bit about is when we are healing ourselves with the help of the Akashic Records, we're not just healing ourselves, we're healing 7 generations behind and the generations to come. And I think that that's really important. And I think it's awesome.
It is awesome. And also, that healing goes through space and time. So we will heal the souls that we're incarnating with now. We will bring healing to our soul group, which is the people that we incarnate with time and time again. They don't have to be family here on earth. They might just be a friend or a colleague or, a neighbor. They don't have to be family,
Mm.
family. But the healing that it can bring is absolutely so huge. And if you took the McDonald's and the Campbells up in Scotland, the massacre at Glencoe, they still all hate each other, and
Mm.
that's like 300 years ago.
Yeah.
So if somebody resolved that now, that
Yeah.
is a lot of healing to a lot of souls just from that one thing alone. So the healing is not to be underestimated. You're healing yourself and you're helping to heal so many other souls and so many other times and places as well.
Absolutely. It's a ripple effect that just goes across time and space, like you say. And it's absolutely fantastic. Like, if a few hundred people healed the witch wound, for example, or the priestess wound, imagine the impact on the collective.
Oh, absolutely. And, we're not going to dive into the rabbit hole that is parallel universes and alternate dimensions today, because that's too heavy at this point.
Yeah.
Um, but potentially, if you're healing your soul in this life, so if Tracy's doing the work, any part of my soul that is having another life on this planet or in another dimension, an alternate time, that's getting the healing as well, which is why we have strange dreams. It's why we can suddenly have a personality shift and we're like, I don't know where that came from. It's because
Mhm.
someone else has done the work. So it's that your soul isn't just in one person. Your soul can be in half a dozen lives all at the same time, so those other five are going to benefit. So it's really hard to really show people the magnitude of the impact of doing that
Mm.
self work.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's just so powerful. And I really feel that we're being awoken at this time to do this work. Like, we have incarnated at this time, to start clearing these massive woundings so that we can free up the next generations as well as heal the past.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that one. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's dig into what the witch wound actually is,
Well,
right? So, sorry, not the witch
priestess
wound, the
wound.
priestess wound. I've
It's
got
like you're
witch wound.
allergic to the word today. It's pretty funny.
It is. Right, okay. We're doing the priestess wound, okay? So every time I say witch, it's priestess. Okay. So the priestess wound is the soul level trauma from being suppressed, silenced, punished, um, all for holding like sacred wisdom, for holding our soul's truth, for our spiritual power. If you think about some of the priestesses and what they actually went through, but also intuitive leadership, which I think is really, really important. I did a soul story on Cleopatra a couple of days ago with the cards, and of course, the priestess wound came up, and it really showed what energy she was holding
Yeah,
from this that played out in her life. So it's very much about suppression. You can almost imagine a priestess being bound and tied
yeah.
so that she couldn't use her hands, so she couldn't use her magic to make changes for transformation. And I feel a lot of these priestesses were used and abused by different powers. So we're not only talking about persecution and all of those kind of things, we're talking about being abused by people in power and wanting to only them to use the power that the priestess held.
Absolutely. And, with Cleopatra and the Egyptian kings and queens as a whole, whereas our royalty tend to go through the armed forces, they mostly did apprenticeships or were acolytes in the priesthood and the priestesshood until they were ready to take the throne.
Mm,
And just like any other country, I mean, crikey, you look at England's history and the machinations going on around Henry VIII. That wasn't limited to Henry VIII, but more people seem to know about the Henry VIII shenanigans.
mm,
So in those temples in Egypt, there would have been power plays because we've got the next king or queen as one of our acolytes, and we want our powerful god to be more powerful than the god that they're using at the moment. And so there would have been all sorts of power plays that either directly involved the priests and priestesses, and other
mhm.
times they were just a pawn and hadn't got a clue what was going on in the background. But you're left with the fallout, which, Cleopatra would have definitely had the fallout from.
Yeah, 100%. It's all about, especially in Egypt, it's about show, it's about illusion, it's about what they wanted the world to see and believe.
Mm,
So it's a very controlled energy, right? Which I think is quite interesting. And also like when they've reached their limits or the next one's ready to come in, they were literally excised.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not the persecution that we see in the witch wound, but they were exiled,
Mm.
right? Or they were, placed in tombs and things like that where they couldn't use their power.
Yeah.
So and generally, people of the villages and all of those things, they would have feared that power because they would have been told something that's a complete illusion about the power of a priestess and what she can do. Whereas with the witch, they lived in the villages. The priestesses were very much outside of that. They were royalty. They were bigged up, I suppose, um, in a different way. But they were incredibly powerful,
Yeah.
incredibly powerful. And just like we have the social projections now, there were still those social projections
Yeah.
that kept normal people in fear of the priestesses and priests with the power.
Absolutely. And then if you bring in the other power plays that were going on as well, and the female being repressed has been going on since Adam and Eve,
Yeah.
which that don't even get me on that one. But the priests were higher up the chain than the priestesses, and the kings had more power than the queens, and people feared the female people, so they would want to repress any temple that was looking to get too big for its boots because
Mm.
they just wouldn't want the males being eclipsed by the females. So there was all that going on in the background as well. So that mixes things up a huge amount.
Yeah, 100%. It's like women are always, so much lower than the men, but they're the ones that really create change in, what's going on in awakening. Of course, males have their role, but we
Yeah.
tend to look more to the priestesses than we do to the gods.
Absolutely. And just to be clear here, I'm totally into the balance of the feminine and the masculine, the male and the female. We're both equal. We both bring different things to the table. So
Mm,
no one is better than the other. But
for
this
sure.
repression that we've had ever since the dawn of creation, where women are portrayed as the temptress and men are the weak ones that give in all the time,
Mm.
it's like it's madness, so that's messed with a lot of the power plays over the years because of that fear of the femininity, that desire to crush them and hold them back. And so it's interwoven in most of the different wounds. It's not just in the ones that sound feminine, but it is there all the way through everything.
Yeah, 100%. So, where do these wounds come from?
Mhm.
So, they'll come from lifetimes of being a priestess, serving gods,
Yeah.
right? Being in temples, serving gods, and not having a voice of their own because they were in service
Yeah.
at the end of the day. So they will have a vow of servitude placed in with that. Um, they were almost oracles, like they were there to give information. They were there as seers, as um readers as well, I suppose is a good way of saying it, but they were vessels, and they were either forced into celibacy or silence,
Yeah.
right? So we may have a vow of chastity that's linked to that, or a vow of silence, which is interesting when we look at what the priestess wound is, really about. Um, so shall we talk about how it shows up today?
Yeah, great idea.
Okay, so fear of being a leader is
Yeah.
definitely one of those. Fear of speaking our truth.
Yeah, that's definitely still going on in this day and age.
Yeah. Playing small to avoid being visible.
Yeah.
Definitely. Um, Holding immense wisdom, but not able to fully share it or even charge for it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a crossover with the witch wound there, but it is very much about, that visibility and speaking our truth.
Mm.
Feeling like we have to ask permission to speak, to share, or to guide.
Yeah,
Um, Fear of being too much or being too emotional.
yeah,
Um, Perhaps over identifying with humility, with servitude, or suffering. So, one vow, one vow I feel is relevant to this is I have to sacrifice myself to be of service.
yeah. Because if you went into the priesthood in the UK, and I know all the different priesthoods are different, like if you were an oracle in Greece, that was very different to the Egyptian temples and very different to the
Mm,
British ones. But you generally came from a good family and you were either on the spinster rack because no other bugger wanted you, but you had to renounce your family, your titles, your wealth, and what have you, and then join the church and become not a nobody, but that might have been how they'd been made to feel. But you don't have identity. Like if you join into the nuns league, I can't think what the right word is, you're no longer Suzi. Suddenly you might be Sister Mary Frances, and there might be
mm,
a million Mary Franceses. So you've actually lost your identity. You've become
mm.
homogenous. And you're not encouraged to have an identity. You're not encouraged to stand out. You're a flock. You're a team. You're a mass. And so us women aren't feeling like we can have an identity and be an individual. We feel like we just got to be part of the scenery. So it does really cause a huge amount of problems.
Absolutely. And with that, there are going to be the feelings of shame, fear, guilt, and they're really deep, deep emotions that we can carry through having the priestess wound or the priest wound.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a lot that goes in with the priestess wound. So there may also be like the fear of being seen as egotistical or um, too powerful or manipulative or not spiritually pure, or there's just so many things that go in with this. And there could be also feeling unworthy of being the
Mm,
face of your mission, right? If you've been suppressed, if you've had your power suppressed or taken away from you, being the forefront of your mission, your business, you can start to feel, quite unworthy because of what you've experienced in these priestess lifetimes.
yeah. And one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of people tend to talk about the extreme of the pendulum, So if you were a priest or a priestess or a nun, you would have taken a vow of chastity. So we
Mhm.
talk about, the intimacy issues and being frigid versus the sex addiction, like, say, Michael Douglas, but they don't talk about the spectrum in between. And so
Mm.
there's this whole swing of the pendulum where our wound can leave us, but you can bet your bottom dollar it's not at neutral in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. When we look at some of the priestesses, like Cleopatra, who had those karmic relationships, she was like at that far end of the addictive relationships,
Mm,
right? So we're all going to be at slightly different places in different lifetimes, right? So I think we touched on this in the first episode that we have lifetimes where things are really positive, we have lifetimes where things are really negative, we have lifetimes where things are in the middle so that we can understand the full range of what's
yeah.
going on so that we're not biased in one area or another.
Mm, absolutely. And I don't know whether people will know this, but when we talk about William Shakespeare and him saying, everyone's an actor and the world is your stage, I believe that that one person, it might as well be a one man show because that one soul needs to be the murderer, the murdered, the family of the murdered, the family of the person doing the murdering, the police that come to the scene, the medical staff, so that you see all the different facets. But that is going to leave trauma if you've been through all of that emotional upheaval. But we do need to understand what it feels like to be abandoned, how it feels like to be related to those that have been abandoned, as well as being the person that's done the abandoning, whether that's through death, whether that's through just about enough, I'm out of here, through dying from health problems, or being in prison, or whatever it is. There's a lot of facets to it. It's just not as black and white as people are often led to believe.
100%. So, do you want to talk a little bit about like the physical symptoms of holding the priestess wound?
Yeah, they tend to be myriad. Again, it's not, oh, it will definitely be this. Definitely a lot of people have issues in the throat area, so thyroid problems. They might get a lot of laryngitis or tonsillitis, things that prevent them from speaking out. Or they can be like so chatty, it's like noise, 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 but not necessarily a lot of substance. Um, because of this inability to express themselves or to be their authentic self. That one comes up probably the most when I'm working with people. What about you?
Some anxiety, yeah, especially around the visibility piece, the charging their worth, they're stepping into a leader, right?
Mm,
Most of my clients have their own businesses and they're here to be a leader in whatever form that is for them. So that fear of being a leader, fear of being the face of the business, doubting their abilities. And I feel some of that actually links to anxiety.
mm. Yeah, and certainly when we look at the chakra system, because everything shows up in the chakra system, because of the issue with poverty, that will affect the root and the navel chakra, and that will affect our ability to have abundance. Now, we might be consciously going, bring it on, I want to be as rich as Croesus, but whatever's going on energetically with us, with the priestess wound and with those chakras, might just mean it doesn't matter what we do, we just can't seem to get money and hold on to it, because whatever that belief is, maybe, like the vow back in the day when people took vows, they knew that if they didn't stick with that vow, their soul would go to hell or purgatory.
Mm,
Don't think that that's something that a lot of the world takes as seriously now. So people find it easier to break promises and vows. But when our soul knew that it was in jeopardy of purgatory and hell if it broke the vow, that vow was hugely important. And so when that soul died, it can bring that vow into this life. So a lot of people, their soul is still resonating with the vow of poverty
mm,
when actually that one's done and dusted. And that's why abundance just seems to avoid them or elude them, because it's going against their soul. I always think of the kids trains we had as kids. They were magnetized, and we used to
mm.
play with the magnets and try and put the same polarity together, and it would force them apart. And that's what I see when I find people have got this vow or this curse or something like that going on that's at odds with what they're trying to do in this life. It just keeps forcing the two apart, and until they clear that wound or that vow, they're going to keep having problems.
100%. 100%. So let's talk a little bit about healing the priestess wound. Now, as we mentioned earlier, we can go into the Akashic Records and have a look at some of your lifetimes as a priestess. We can learn the lessons, we can bring forward the gifts, and we can start to clear what you're holding on to emotionally without going through the emotion and the trauma.
Yeah.
So that's a really good way if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about your lifetimes, what you experienced, what magic you held, going into the Akashic Records and doing a deep healing is going to be the most effective way. But there are other ways that we can clear the priestess wound or start to clear it. And that comes down to understanding. So, understanding that we are the vessel, we are the flame, understanding that we are sacred and that we have a mission, understanding that our voice is important,
Mm.
right? And for those that are, very fearful of being visible, it's about practicing being visible, right? It's not something that can just be healed really, really quickly, but with practice and dedication and devotion, you can start to clear the priestess wound from you. So you want to like step into that leadership role,
Mm,
right? The priestesses were here to be leaders. And if you're suffering with the priestess wound, then you're here to be a leader. So it's about practicing being that leader, energetically feeling the leader that you came here to be, and
mm,
start creating, start teaching without shrinking, without fitting into the box that you feel people want to see. It's very much about stepping into your authenticity, right? And stepping into the priestess that you came to be, not what people expect you to be. Um, Boundary setting also really, really important.
very.
Um, I talk about boundaries a lot because they are so important because we don't want to be surrounded by things, people, events, circumstances that literally drain our energy or take our time or stop us from fulfilling our purpose. So, setting boundaries with those around you, but also setting boundaries with yourself is also really, really important, right? If you know that you procrastinate, for example, you need to set a boundary around what you're going to do if you start to feel that you're procrastinating about going live and stepping into your leadership role.
Yeah,
So there are lots of different things. Definitely, I feel with the priestess wound, it's worth trying to look back, whether you use the Akashic Records or not, trying to have a look at your lineage and what they brought forwards, what patterns and behaviors did they pass on to you. And that's going to be positive and negative,
yeah,
right? Um, and that can help you to see, what's been passed down and what needs to be released, both for you and for them. And I think, priestesses are the energy I get are very compassionate, they're very feminine, they're very powerful. So it's about integrating that power and that compassion into everything that you do.
absolutely. And I don't know about you because I believe that everyone goes where they're meant to go. So I might see loads of women with the priestess wound and it manifests in this problem here. You might see loads and theirs all manifest as this over here. So
Yeah.
we may have very different results. But I definitely find that when you look at the vows that the different orders would have taken, and so you might have to do some research, you'll find what kind of pings for you. So I think the traditional ones in the English church were hope, chastity, poverty, obedience, and I can't remember the others, I always forget them. But if you look, do you find that if someone says the answer's black, you believe it's white? It don't
Mhm.
matter whether it's law, you'll go, no, it's not how it is. Because your soul is rebelling against that obedience.
Mm.
Do you find that you can't bear a silence? And if it's silent, you've got to put the radio on, or you've got to talk to yourself, or maybe the opposite. Maybe you can't stand noise and chatter and you have to go away and have that solitude, but that doesn't work with your lifestyle. And, women in the UK, I don't know about other countries, we're not really encouraged to have us time. It's like, no,
Mhm.
your husband needs you, your children needs you, your family needs you. You're supposed to be busy, busy, busy. It's like, actually, I just want to go and sit at the bottom of the garden with a cup of coffee and chill and listen to the birds sing.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of women with thyroid problems, a lot of women with self-worth issues, abundance issues, being able to voice and be their true self,
Mhm.
and fertility issues. It's like they don't feel it's safe to be pregnant. And
Mhm.
that will go back to that vow of chastity because
Yeah.
nuns were not meant to be doing stuff like that. Um, and again, if we look at the male side, because obviously there was monks as well, they were always told that anything trying to find the right word, anything carnal was dirty, and your soul would go to purgatory and hell and be tortured for the rest of time. So
Mm,
a lot of men are going to have fear of intimacy and have an issue with their masculinity because they don't feel that they can express it safely. But I do predominantly work with women, so I don't have huge amounts of experience working with guys. But I would say if any of this resonates with people, either meditate on one of the traditional vows that you would take if you took holy orders and just see
mm,
what comes up. You might see it, hear it, feel it, know it. It doesn't matter how it comes to you. If you prefer to journal, then journal. Just pick
mm,
one and journal, and then deal with what comes up. And then when you're ready, move on to the next one. And you might find that some of the vows make you go, not feeling anything. And then another time it'd be like, oh, well, that one makes me want to run in the opposite direction. And you know that there's something there that you need to work with. I have got a vow clearing visualization meditation on my website. Have you got anything like that?
Yep, I have got a wealth alignment activation, which clears all your chakras for money, and a vow of poverty clearing as well.
Excellent. So there are tools out there if people do have these problems and do want to clear them. I know Suzi's a huge fan of self work, same as I am. So do as much self work as you possibly can. But if and when you hit that wall, that's where people like Suzi and I come in. So you don't need a therapist all the time, but sometimes they're so deep seated or we can't find the root cause that we need some professional person to help us. And I find that my clients that do the work between sessions, they get so much more growth and healing. So definitely use the tools that are there to get your self healing. And talking of which, your tool, your biggest tool is your deck of cards, isn't it?
It is my Akashic Alchemy, Soul Alchemy Oracle deck, which is live on Kickstarter at the moment. It covers the major wounds like the Priestess Wound, the Witch Wound, the Sister Wound, Mother and Father wounds, but also it looks at the patterns and behaviors that we take on from our ancestors, from society. So it's really designed to help you to heal what is holding you back. So there's 6 different pathways that we go through within the deck, which is really powerful, and they include the wounds and the shadows, the relationships, money and abundance, and our energy. So, raising our energy and also our purpose and our mission and what we're here to do. So they're on Kickstarter now. So I will put the link in the description. So we're 70% funded, which is
Brilliant.
amazing. So we just need to get a little bit more funding so that we can get them live.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to be using your cards from next week in my weekly Telegram portal. It's my subscription offering where I just drop little nuggets and little card readings to help you develop on a daily basis without taking loads of time. So people who join that will get to work with those cards, but not in the same depth that they would if they were working with you. So do go through the show notes if there's anything we've said today that you need help with or that resonates and you want to go and investigate further, then I definitely recommend that you do. And if there's anything that Suzi and I offer that can help you, then do get in contact as well.
Absolutely fantastic. I do have some free activations, priestess activations on my YouTube channel. So it's worth checking those out as well.
Oh, I do that myself and just see what resonates.
Perfect.
Excellent. Well, thank you for tuning in, guys. Again, do drop questions, do drop feedback because that's really important and it helps us with the next show. Do you know what you want to do next week since we're working through your cards?
Shall we do the mother wound? Because that's a big one.
Okay, so any questions about the mother wound, like what the heck is it? How does it manifest? What can I do about it? Anything you like. And we will touch on that next week and delve into the different aspects of it. And if you are listening on any of the podcast sites like iTunes or Spotify, etc., we'd love it if you'd leave us a review because that would really help us to show up for more people. And we really want to help as many people as possible.
Yes, we do. I can't wait to see you next week.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. I'm going to go and see what else I can find from today's show so I can clear that out and make way.
Fantastic.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next
Thank
week.
you.